Hello. I recently played my first ever on-stage show using Ableton and the Push-to controller, and it was a stressful experience to say the least. I did a ton of research, took a bunch of different techniques and mashed them all together, and I figured I may as well share everything that I learned with you guys so that hopefully you can have a much less stressful experience than I did. Having played a lot of different shows on stage before, either solo with guitar or piano or with an entire band, I can say that the level of anxiety of relying on technology and not just on yourself and your instruments can be a lot. So I'm here to walk you through that process. We're gonna go step by step, nice and slow. This is gonna be a two-part video. In this first video, we're gonna talk about prep, everything that you should do and prepare before you even open up Ableton. And then in part two, we'll take a look at Ableton. We will make a session and get you ready to be on stage. Let's jump into a numbered list. Number one, the first thing that you need to do is decide what you want your show to look like. Do you want to be looping the entire time? Do you want to be in the middle of the stage, on the edge of the stage? What is the vibe that you want to give to your audience? I knew that I wanted to do a little bit of looping and then also play acoustically. So my plan was to set up my keyboard on one side of the stage, have some space on the other so that I could loop for a bit, go play some acoustic songs for a bit, and then come back and loop some more, just to keep things a little bit interesting. I didn't want to do the same kind of loop structure over and over again, and by breaking it up in the middle, I was able to provide a little bit of interest. At least I think it was interesting. I don't know. Step two. Now that you know what you want your show to look like, it's time to make a set list. And whether that's original songs or covers, physically writing out a list or even putting a list on your phone or on your computer is super helpful. I like to write my lists out on a piece of paper because for some reason making it physical helps my brain make sense of things. And I'll actually put this physical piece of paper on the stage so that I don't forget what is next. Having your set list already set out will also help inform the next step of this prep journey. Number three, play through the songs that you want to play on stage, or at the very least, listen to a recording of them so that you can decide exactly what instruments you want. I highly recommend making kind of a dummy session in Ableton for each song and running through it. For me, because I'm often playing my music live on Twitch, I had an idea already of what instruments I wanted, but sitting down and playing through them and taking my time gave me a bigger opportunity to decide what I wanted that to look like. The bigger reason that you want to do this is if, like me, you're going to be playing off of a laptop, in my case a 2015 MacBook Pro, you know that it's probably not going to be able to handle having 24 different instruments and then each song is only using maybe 3 or 4 of those. You want to try and reuse your instruments as much as possible. And this can also give you an opportunity to play songs a little bit differently than you normally would and a little bit differently than the recording based on the instruments that you have available. For example, if you know that for one song you're going to need 4 different acoustic guitar tracks for all of the layers, and there's another song that usually only uses 1 acoustic guitar track, maybe you add a little bit of extra guitar just because you've got the tracks available, so you may as well take advantage of that and make use of them. Once you have kind of your list of instruments, you're basically ready to start getting things set up in Ableton, but I'm gonna pull us back a little bit on that and bring us to step 4. Figure out how much of each track you want to be looping. When I'm playing live on Twitch, I build every single track from scratch, but that means that some of my tracks can take 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes before I'm even playing the song. And knowing that I only have an hour and a half to play on stage and that I want to keep my audience interested and engaged, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't building everything 100% from scratch, but also wasn't playing to a backing track. What I mean by that is if you build everything in Ableton in advance and you don't really show any of your work while you're up on stage, all you're really doing is triggering different parts of the song and you may as well be playing to a backing track. There's nothing wrong with playing to a backing track, but it doesn't require a rather complicated piece of technology and a laptop in order to do that. So you need to find some sort of middle ground where you're showing your loop and creating the loop, which is a neat and interesting thing for your audience to look at, but you also have things prepared in advance so that you're not standing up there for 20 minutes. One thing that I knew is that I didn't want to be duplicating tracks while I was on stage, because there's so much room for error in case you're accidentally duplicating a track instead of duplicating a clip or duplicating a scene, and then it's crackling the audio and it's all terrible. So I knew that I wanted to have a couple of clips that I would create live on stage, but then I would already have pre-made versions of those exact same clips loaded into the session, so that when I drop down to the next scene, instead of having to duplicate everything down, it's already there and it's already set up, but it sounds the same as what I've created on stage. So to the audience, that bass line or that drum track that I've just made is going to be the same one that they're hearing as the song goes on. Little do they know that I actually made it here in my office a week prior to the show. I think it's important to find a balance of how much you want to show the audience of what you're making and how much, for your own comfort level, you want to have preset in advance. I was happy to record vocal harmonies on stage because I trust myself and I trust my ear. If harmonies aren't something that come natural to you, maybe you're not recording vocal harmonies on stage. That's something that you've done in advance so that you can make sure that they're perfect and exactly the way that you want them to be. Step number 5. Now it's time to think about your gear. I knew that I didn't want to go up on stage with a whole bunch of different controllers, so I set my sights months ago on the Arturia Keylab MK II. This is not sponsored. I asked them if they would sponsor me, but they never responded to my emails. The reason I had my eye on it is because I knew it had enough triggerable, programmable pads, as well as knobs and dials and all of the features that I wanted in order to eliminate my additional small controllers that I had been using up until that point. I knew that I wanted to be on stage with as little in front of me as possible, but still be able to have the biggest impact. I knew I was going to need the push, a laptop, and this keyboard, not to mention my guitars, of course, but I knew that I wanted my laptop to be down and out of the way so that I'm not looking at it. So I knew that I needed to create a session that was going to allow me to run everything directly from the push and to not touch my laptop at all if I could avoid it. It's also important to consider how much control you want to give to whoever is running the audio at your venue. Chances are they know way better the sound of the room, the way reverb works, the way volumes and bass frequencies are going to sound the best for that space. And so I wanted to provide the most control to them as possible while still being able to kind of control things on my side. So I rented a different interface to make sure that I could have enough outputs to send into the house so that they could still control things on their side. I provided 2 outputs for my vocal, a left and right channel, and 2 outputs for my instruments. Same deal. I have a lot of stereo panning and movement in my songs, so I wanted to make sure that that could also translate into the video and create a really lovely immersive audio experience. I'm sure that I'm not alone in experiencing a sound guy being very confused by the fact that I wasn't plugging anything directly into the house, that everything was going to come from my laptop out into his inputs. But we got through it, and honestly, I think they had a really good time by the end of the day and learned a little something about audio, so here's to personal growth, I guess. But make sure that you are walking in being very confident and knowing exactly what you need. If you don't need to record vocal loops, putting your voice directly into the house is often a really good opportunity for them to make sure that it's mixed properly for the room. What you hear in your headphones, what I could hear in my in-ear headphones, other than the click, sounded good, but I honestly kept popping my earphones out if I didn't need them so that I could listen to the monitors and I could listen to the feeling of the room, because it feels so good to be on stage and actually have that music just blaring at you. In conclusion, figure out what gear you need and make it work according to all of the other prep that we've done already this video. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope that it has been super useful for you and that you feel a little bit more prepared going into creating your Ableton session. In the next video, we are going to start from scratch and set up a session, and I am also going to show you the session that I use when I play live and give you a little example of what a live performance from me looks like using Ableton and the Push 2. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy any of my videos, feel free to like and subscribe. If there is anything that you want to learn about in a future tutorial, please feel free to leave it in a comment down below. I am working really hard to do more of these and have more of these prepared in advance. So keep your eyes out for part 2 of this video, and I will see you later.